Well, hi folks. Today I'm gonna end up cooking outside in my outdoor oven, and I'm not making pizza tonight, but I am gonna make some brats and some other stuff in there. And so I thought I would share with you uh, what I do to start the fire. When I had first started, I wasn't real sure where folks put it and what kind of wood they used and all that stuff. So I'll just show you real quick what I do to start a fire in there, and some of the wood I use, and we'll go from there. Hopefully, it's useful. All right, so when it comes to fire starting, you got three main elements, of course. You have the tinder, which is the smallest stuff, up to about the size of a matchstick if you have actual matches or actual sticks. I tend to just use recycled paper that used as packaging and things like that. I get plenty of this in the mail with all the stuff we get, and so I just tend to use this. It burns clean and quick, and it's always dry, and whenever I get a piece, I throw it in a box in the garage, and then when I'm ready to have a fire, this is what I start with. So a wad about this big usually gets my fire going real good, and I break it into a couple of pieces, always wadded up nice and tight, because if you leave it all flat and loose, then you get pieces that break off and fly away, and you can start fires places you don't want fires. So remember to do that. And then the next step after your tinder is your kindling. Kindling is stuff that's about number 2 pencil size, up to about the size of your thumb. So this falls into that range. And I use a lot of this in the pizza oven. A lot of stuff this size gets used in there. It's what I use to kind of maintain my heat and stuff like that. And then the last phase is when you get to the fuel phase, and the biggest piece of wood I tend to put in there is about this size. It's not huge, it's maybe about as big around as my wrist or a little bigger. So maybe some pieces a little bigger than this, but I don't usually put much bigger than that in there because I want to keep it kind of easy to control. I would rather add more and use a little more than have some giant log in there that I don't need the heat from and may not burn as efficiently. So I stick to stuff not much bigger than this. I know other guys may use other stuff, but that's what works for me. As far as the type of wood you use, stick with clean burning woods that are hardwoods. This is all ash. I have exclusively used ash in my oven because I have a lot of it. With the emerald ash borer killing all the ash trees around, it's really easy to find lots of ash, and I've had lots of it just from the trees on my property that I've had to cut down and split up the wood, and I've got piles of it out there just drying. So I use ash. Other wood sources you could use, of course, would be things like oak and hickory, any of the fruit woods like apple and plum and stuff like that. Stuff that's going to burn clean and hot. Stay away from any softwoods like pines and things like that, because you don't want those resins in your oven. They pop and burn gross and build up on the inside and outside, so you don't want that. So stick to hardwoods, and you should have pretty good luck. And then as far as the basic method of starting your fire, I build what I call a log cabin style. Some people would call it, I think some people call it a cottage, but whatever the case, all you're basically doing is starting with sticks about this size, and you build just 2 on one side, 2 on the next, 2 on the next side, and you just kind of build up like that and gradually get a little bit smaller pieces towards the top because they're going to burn a little easier. So start with some bigger pieces on the bottom, smaller pieces on the top, and then before you get too far, put your tinder in there to get going, and it'll look something like that, of course, inside the mouth of your oven. And I'll show you where that sits in a second here. But honestly, that probably would be enough to get the fire going, and then just kind of keep an eye on it. And as it gets going really well, you can start adding some bigger logs to it. Stuff about this size you could then lay on the top as it gets lit. And you'll have a really good fire in about, 5 minutes. You'd be able to throw a couple of decent sized fuel logs in there and then go prep the other stuff that you need while your oven gets up to temperature, throwing a few logs in every now and then as you kind of check your temperature. So I'll show you how I set this up inside there and where it sits, and then we'll light it. So my oven is an Alfa 4 Pizze. No matter what style or type of oven you have, the idea here is basically the same. You're going to build your fire inside the mouth of the oven, back far enough that when your flames are get good and roaring, they're not going to come out the front. You don't ever want your flames coming out the front of your oven. You want them to always vent and go up through your smokestack. So you want to sit back a couple of inches from your opening so that your fire doesn't come out the front, which you can see I've had a little bit that does because some of the smoke is built up there, but not too much. That's mostly just because of bad venting while it's burning. So you go back in from the opening a couple of inches in the center. That's where I always start my fire. And it works really well. Then obviously once you get it going, if you're using the floor for cooking pizzas or something like that, then you can scoot your fire off to the side once it's good and burning. Always start in the middle. All right, so time to build my fire. My oven is about 2 feet deep. It's not quite exactly that, but it's in that neighborhood. So I want to start the front edge of my what I call a log cabin. Maybe a good 6 inches back from the opening. That's where I set that first log, and then I set the next log there behind that. And then I get my tinder, which is, balled up dried paper is what I use. You could use whatever you want. Just stay away from stuff that's got gross chemicals or something in it, because you don't want that somewhere where you cook. So you get your tinder in there so that when you light it, it takes off nice and easy. Build up that log cabin a bit, and like I said, I tend to use bigger logs at the bottom. Makes for a little bit more stable cabin. Probably good enough. Now if I had some small sticks and stuff, I could set those in there, kind of on the top of that paper, like that, which helps kind of get that going with a little bit bigger stuff. And we're about ready to go. When you are ready to light, I recommend one of those lighters that's got a nice, a long, that's like a butane lighter that's got the long tip on it, so that you don't have to get funky about getting in there. Of course, I don't have my long butane lighter; they're all burned out. So I'll just be using a typical lighter, and I'll have to light like a stick or something, and then use that because I can't really get this in there without burning myself. So I'll just have to get creative, but it'll be just fine. So once you got a nice little log cabin, kind of like that, you'll be ready to go. So one question you might have also is how much wood do you need for a night of burning? And if all you were doing was making, maybe 10 pizzas or something like that, which are going to cook real quick. If you're doing like a Neapolitan style, they're going to cook in a minute or two, and you'll have, you're not actually going to have that long of a cooking time. You need enough wood to get the fire good and hot, which takes maybe 15-20 minutes. And then maybe another, enough wood to cook maybe for 30, depending on how quick you are with your pizzas. And so what you see under there is probably enough wood for cooking pizza for a night. I always prepare way more wood than I need. That's all left over from the last time. I haven't chopped any wood yet today. So that's all from my last fire that I did. But that would honestly probably be enough for just, a pizza type kind of night. Tonight, though, I'm going to end up doing some more baking type cooking. So I'm going to need probably some more wood because it'll need to be burning a little bit longer. So just have an idea of how much you need, and it's always better to have more. You can always use it again later. All right, so it's time to light this baby. And if I had a better lighter, I would try to sneak that in there, but this will work. Well, I'd say that's going pretty well. And from there, we'll just keep adding a little bit bigger sticks until we get up to some nice fuel side logs. And then once those are going, we can move that fire where we need it to go so we can cook. And we're sitting at about 7 minutes and 30 seconds since I lit it. Not even, probably more like 7 minutes or 6. So you can see not much smoke coming out the front. And hopefully you can see that smoke coming out the top of the chimney, getting a nice draw on there. Once I get a few fuel logs on there, I'll put the door on with it cracked so that it heats up the oven good and warm. One good way to get the fire going inside there. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.